The moment I saw her standing at the end of the hallway, I knew something was horribly wrong. Her face was pale, her eyes fixed on mine, and the scariest part, I had locked every door before going to bed. This was supposed to be the safest chapter of my life. I had finally moved out on my own, fresh out of college, working my first real job, living in a quiet town. But solitude has a way of revealing what lives in the shadows. Story 1. The Woman in the Hallway. I moved into a small one-bedroom unit tucked beneath a larger house, just a few blocks from downtown. The rent was cheap, the neighborhood was quiet, and the landlord seemed harmless enough, an older man who lived upstairs with another tenant. The place was dated, but I didn't mind. It was mine. Most nights, I'd unwind with a scary movie I know. Not the smartest habit when you live alone, but for some reason, they help me forget about real-life stresses. The irony, of course, is that I never imagined becoming the main character in one. It was a cold Thursday night in October. I had just finished watching The Taking of Deborah Logan, creepy enough to leave a residue in your mind, when I decided to call it a night. I did my usual check, locked the door, turned off the lights, and crawled into bed. My bedroom faced the back alley, so the only light came from the street lamp outside the living room. I was half asleep when I heard the first sound, a creak, sharp, sudden, and close. I sat up, confused. It wasn't coming from upstairs. The tenant's car wasn't even in the driveway that night, and the floorboards here didn't creak unless you walked directly over them. I froze. Then came another sound, like the soft shuffle of bare feet on hardwood. I reached for my phone, the dim screen lighting up my trembling hands. 2:41 a.m. I stepped out of bed quietly, creeping toward the hallway door. I didn't want to believe it, but my gut was screaming. I opened the door just a crack and peeked down the narrow hallway. At the end, silhouetted by the moonlight pouring in through the kitchen window, she stood there. A woman, mid-30s maybe, wearing a pale dress, her dark hair hanging like a curtain around her face. She didn't flinch, didn't move, just stared. I froze. My legs betrayed me. She started to walk backward, still facing me, disappearing into the darkened kitchen. I slammed the bedroom door, locked it, and staggered backward until I hit the wall. I couldn't breathe. My fingers fumbled across the nightstand for something, anything, and finally found the lamp switch. I sat there, light flooding the room, heart racing like a war drum. I didn't hear any footsteps approaching, no rattling doorknob. Instead, I heard the creak of the entryway stairs, then the front door slamming shut. I didn't move for 10 whole minutes. When I finally mustered the courage, I unlocked my door, phone clutched like a weapon, and crept through the apartment. Nothing. Empty. No broken glass, no signs of forced entry. But I knew what I saw. I called the landlord the next morning. His voice changed the moment I told him what happened. "I think I know who it was," he said, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath. "The guy upstairs. He had a bad breakup last year. Woman showed up screaming once. We thought that was the end of it. Apparently, she had found the address again and broke into my unit, mistaking it for his. The upstairs tenant came down later that day to apologize. He looked shaken too, like this wasn't the first time she had lost control. But no one offered more than vague assurances. I never saw her again. I changed the locks, got a security system, but the image of her standing at the end of my hallway, face empty, body still comes back to me some nights. Because now I know something that keeps me awake. Not all break-ins are about theft. Some are personal, some are meant for someone else, and sometimes you're just in the way. Story 2. Kathy. When my mom died in 2019, my dad was never the same again. He tried to stay strong for me and my younger brothers, but behind closed doors, I knew the loneliness was suffocating him. So when he started dating Kathy, we didn't push back, not at first. I wanted to give her a chance, truly, but something about her never sat right with me. She had this smile that stretched too wide, as if she was performing joy rather than feeling it. She moved in quicker than any of us expected, turning from Dad's new girlfriend to lady of the house in a matter of weeks. At first, it was little things: her roaming the house when no one else was home, her tendency to lock doors behind her, even when inside rooms alone. But then things escalated. One day, I came home early from school and heard the creak of the closet door in my dad's bedroom. He wasn't home, but she was. I peeked through the crack and found her crouched in front of his safe. She didn't flinch, just turned, smiled that hollow smile, and said, "Hey there, sweetheart." I didn't say a word, just backed away and went to my room. I told my dad that night. His reaction? She probably needed something from the closet. Don't overthink it. But that wasn't the only time. Another afternoon, I watched her leave my little brother Jake's room. She told me she was just airing it out. But when I checked, the windows were sealed shut. I started keeping track of everything. Every time she lied, every time she snooped, every time her smile turned into something predatory. Then came the breaking point. It was a Saturday. Dad and I were out. Kathy stayed home to babysit our youngest brother, Scotty, only 2 years old. I came home earlier than expected. Quietly. I didn't announce myself. I just slipped in and listened. From the kitchen, I heard Scotty crying. Not regular crying, panicked crying. And then her voice. "Shut up. Shut the F up." I ran into the room and found her standing over him, red-faced, veins bulging. The moment she saw me, she froze. For once, the smile was gone. I screamed at her to get away from him. She didn't say a word, just turned and walked calmly downstairs, disappearing behind the basement door. I called my dad right then. He promised he'd talk to her. But that night, something worse happened. I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door opening. I was too groggy to react at first, but I saw a figure, someone standing just inside the doorway. And then they backed out, slowly, and shut the door behind them. I jumped up and rushed into the hallway, just in time to see my dad's bedroom door closing. I burst in, Kathy was in bed. So was Dad. I told him she had just been in my room. She denied it, calmly, coldly. "She's been here the whole time," Dad mumbled, still half asleep. But her eyes told a different story. They weren't sleepy. They were wide open, staring at me. That night, I locked my door, and every night since. Because I don't think Kathy ever stopped moving through this house. Not even in her sleep. And I don't think her smile ever had anything to do with being happy. It was a mask. And now I'm afraid of what's underneath it. Story 3. The man in the parking lot. There's a special kind of silence you find in coastal cities during the off-season. The tourists are gone. The beach is empty. And at night, all you hear are the waves and the hum of streetlights. That's what I loved about my condo in Fort Lauderdale. I'd retreat there every winter, just me, my laptop, and the ocean breeze. I worked remotely, so I'd spend my days on the balcony with my feet propped up, soaking in the salt air. But that night, everything changed. It was past 10 p.m. I was replying to work emails on my laptop, the glow of the screen casting shadows on my face. That's when I heard it. Hey, you." At first, I ignored it. My neighbors were usually loud, sometimes drunk, sometimes just annoying. But then I heard it again, more direct. "Yeah, you. Up there." I lowered my laptop and leaned over the railing. Below, in the dimly lit parking lot, stood a man next to a car. He was staring straight at me. He wore a tank top and a backwards cap. I figured he was some drunk kid playing around. "What's up?" I called. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Come down here," he said. "I want to show you something cool." I laughed nervously and shook my head. "I'm good, thanks." That's when he said it. "I'm gonna come up there and skin you alive." His voice was calm, matter of fact, like he was stating a fact, not a threat. I stood frozen, my fingers clenching the balcony rail. Something about his expression had changed, like he had been waiting for me to refuse. I grabbed my laptop, went inside, and locked the balcony door. No more games. I waited, expecting him to yell more, but instead, silence. And then bang, bang, bang. It came from my front door. Violent, erratic pounding, followed by screams. "Open up. I know you're in there, you piece of shit." He had found his way into the building. My condo door rattled as he slammed something against it, maybe a boot, maybe a fist. But then I heard it. Scraping, metal dragging across the wood, followed by a sound like stabbing. I shouted, "I'm calling the police." But he didn't care. He laughed. "Go ahead. They can come scrape your guts off the floor." I backed away, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911 with shaking hands. The pounding stopped. I crept to the peephole. He was gone. When the police arrived, they found deep knife marks in my front door. He really had been trying to stab through it. He didn't know me. He had no reason, no motive. The cops figured he was on something meth, maybe. Just another Florida lunatic. But that doesn't comfort me, because that night, something clicked for me. Random evil exists. It doesn't need a reason. It just needs a moment. And I almost gave it mine. Story 4. The Cellmate. Jail isn't where you expect to make lasting impressions or long-term threats. But some encounters don't end when the cell door closes. I was arrested after a night out gone wrong. A girl I barely knew accused me of something I didn't do, and the bouncer backed her up. One drunken push from me, and I was in the back of a cop car, booked for disorderly conduct. I didn't belong in jail, and I definitely didn't belong in a cell with the guy they put me with. He was older, face covered in tattoos, and missing a few teeth. The kind of guy you don't make eye contact with too long, but he talked a lot. I tried to keep things light. Told him I was from the north side of town. Mentioned that my parents were away for the weekend, that we had thrown a party. I wasn't thinking, I was just venting. He asked questions about my neighborhood, my name. He even asked what school I went to. At the time, it felt like harmless jail talk. We were both released the next morning after a court appearance. I didn't see him again. Didn't think I ever would. That night, I was home alone. My parents still weren't back. I had the windows open to let in the cool air. I was on edge, still rattled from the arrest, but I figured everything was behind me. Then I heard it, footsteps on the deck. Multiple sets. I moved to the sliding door and flipped on the deck light. 2 shadows scattered into the yard, but not before I recognized one of them. It was him, my cellmate. He had found me. I slammed the door shut and locked everything. The windows, the back door. Every light went off. I didn't sleep that night, and I didn't tell my parents. I was already hiding the arrest from them. How could I explain that I might have let a criminal to our front door? I checked my name online the next morning. All it took was a court docket and a simple search. My full name, my address, my school. I had handed it all to him like a gift. He never came back, at least, not that I know of. But sometimes, when I hear noises outside late at night, I remember the way he looked at me before we were released, like he wasn't finished. Some people don't need a reason to come after you. They just need an opportunity, and I gave him mine. Story 5. The Broken Frame. Grief doesn't come with instructions. After my grandmother passed, I thought I had processed it well. I cried. I reminisced. I hung her photo on my bedroom wall, right above my desk where I could see her smiling every day. She was the heart of our family, and the one person who always had an uncanny sense about people. She never liked Spencer. He was charming on the outside, and I wanted to believe in second chances. We'd broken up before, but he reached out again during one of my low moments. I was vulnerable, missing my grandmother, and when he called, I picked up. At first, it felt different. He was calmer, nicer, attentive. But 2 weeks in, things started to slide. The little arguments returned. He snapped at small things, controlled what shows we watched, who I could text, even how I dressed. All the red flags I'd ignored before came back. Only this time, they were wrapped in, I've changed. The night he asked to make things official again, I hesitated. Still, I said yes. That night, I woke to a sound. Glass breaking. I turned on the lamp and looked around. Everything seemed normal until I saw the picture frame. The one of my grandmother, lying face down on the floor. The glass cracked clean down the center. It hadn't just fallen. It had jumped off the nail. I had hung it straight, checked the hook, the balance. There was no breeze, no draft, no reason. I picked it up with shaking hands. Her smile was still there, frozen in that photograph. But it didn't feel like a smile anymore. It felt like a warning. The next day, I told Spencer we needed a break. He exploded, accused me of leading him on, wasting his time. The mask slipped, and everything my grandmother ever said about him came flooding back. She never trusted his eyes. She said they looked dead. After that call, I removed his number, blocked everything, and I swear, since then, I've heard things in the night. Not him, but something else. Like footsteps outside my room, the creak of the floorboards, the clink of picture frames shifting. My grandmother may not be here anymore, but I think she's still watching over me. And I think she broke that frame. Sometimes the dead speak louder than the living, and when they do, you better listen. Story 6. The Voice in the Basement. It happened when I was 15, home alone on a rainy Saturday. My parents had gone out for groceries, and I was in my room upstairs, finishing a history paper due Monday. The storm outside had a calming rhythm, the occasional thunder rolling like distant drums. Then I heard my mom's voice call my name. Not a shout, just a loud, clear call from downstairs. "Daniel." I paused my typing. "Yeah?" I called back. No response. I waited a few seconds. "Mom?" Again, silence. I sighed and got up, annoyed. I figured she needed help carrying something in. But as I made my way downstairs, I noticed something odd. There were no bags near the door, no wet shoes, no keys on the table. I called again, louder this time. "Mom?" And then her voice answered from the basement. "Down here, honey." Something cold pricked the back of my neck. The lights were off in the basement, and we usually kept the door shut. But now, it was wide open, like it had been waiting for me. "Why are you down there?" I asked. No reply. I stood at the top of the steps, staring into the darkness. Then came her voice again, exactly the same tone, same cadence. "Daniel, come help me." It was like someone had hit a replay button. I flicked the basement lights on. They sputtered to life, casting a pale yellow glow down the wooden stairs. I took one step down, then another. Halfway down, I called out one more time. "Are you messing with me?" The voice didn't answer, but I heard movement, a soft shuffle, the sound of a door creaking. I reached the bottom, heart hammering, and looked around. Nothing, just the storage boxes and the boiler humming in the corner. Then I saw it, the crawlspace door, slightly open. That door was always shut, always latched. I leaned down and whispered, "Mom?" Something shifted behind the door. I didn't wait. I sprinted back upstairs, slammed the basement door shut, and locked it. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my real mom, calling to say they were still at the store. I didn't tell her what happened until they got home. When my dad went down to check, everything looked normal, but I couldn't shake it. The voice had sounded like her, the exact same, too perfect. And that night, just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard it again. Only this time, it came from right outside my bedroom door. "Daniel, come help me. Some voices don't belong to the living, and some things should never be answered."